Royal magic today, Princess Leonor and Christian's wedding sparks global celebration. Another royal wedding, a predictable affair, except, this one wasn't. Because what began as tradition, turned into something no one expected. The bells of Madrid rang louder than they had in decades. But they weren't just marking a royal union. They were ringing in a moment the world never thought it would witness. Princess Leonor of Spain, future queen, symbol of modern royalty, stood before the world, hand in hand with Christian of Denmark. A wedding, yes, but more than that, a declaration. Because this moment didn't follow the script. It rewrote it. From the first glimpse of the couple emerging from the cathedral doors, it was clear, this wasn't just another royal spectacle. There was something different in the air, something real, raw, and deeply human. But to understand the magnitude of this day, we have to go back. Not just to the planning, not even to the engagement. We go back to the origin of a love story that grew in silence, in stolen moments, far from the eyes of the press. Two heirs, two countries, two futures. On paper, they shouldn't have worked. But they did. It began at a youth leadership summit, neutral territory, away from protocol. Leonor, already poised, already watched. Christian, more reserved, accustomed to the shadow of Denmark's quiet royal lineage. They were introduced during a group discussion on duty and identity. And something clicked. Not a spark, not fireworks. Something quieter. Recognition. They understood each other, not as symbols, but as people born into roles they never chose. In the months that followed, they kept in touch. Through letters, through discreet phone calls, every message built a bridge across kingdoms and expectations. And while the world focused on Leonor's military training, her public appearances, and Christian's growing presence in Danish ceremonies, no one realized what was forming behind closed palace doors. Until the summer of 2024. That's when they were seen, together, on the cliffs of Majorca. No security in view, no press release, just two people sitting beneath the fading sun, laughing like they'd known each other forever. The photo leaked. The speculation exploded. Was this just friendship? The Spanish press was careful. The Danish media held back. But royal watchers, they knew. The body language said everything. And behind palace walls, things were already moving. Queen Letizia was said to have met Christian privately that same week. Not at a state dinner. Not during an official visit. At home, informal, honest. What did she see in him? Something every mother hopes to see in the person her daughter chooses: respect, humility, love. King Felipe remained silent, but his silence wasn't rejection. It was caution. He knew what such a union meant, for Spain, for tradition, for the future of the crown. And yet, he didn't say no. Because he saw something even greater, a daughter who had accepted her role, but refused to lose herself inside it. The engagement came weeks later. Quietly, privately, no announcement, just a simple visit to Queen Sofia. Leonor wore no ring in public. But in her grandmother's presence, she held Christian's hand. That was the moment confirmation began to ripple across the royal circuit. Spain was preparing for its first royal wedding of a reigning heir in over a century. But what no one predicted was the global reaction. Royal weddings have always drawn attention. But this one sparked something bigger: celebration. Not just in Spain and Denmark, but around the world. Because it represented something deeper: hope. In a world jaded by scandal and spectacle, Leonor and Christian brought something rare: authenticity. And yet, not everyone was ready. Within royal circles, some senior figures were uneasy. A Danish heir marrying a Spanish future queen. It raised constitutional questions. What if their children stood to inherit both thrones? What would that mean for Europe's balance of power? But the couple made one thing clear: they weren't interested in empire. They were building a life, not an alliance. Christian declined any Spanish title. Leonor made it known, her reign would be her own. Still, not all tensions were political. Sources close to the Spanish court revealed quiet conflicts. Advisors questioned the timing. Was Leonor too young? Was Christian prepared? Would their marriage distract from the responsibilities she was just beginning to inherit? And yet, through it all, the couple remained still. Focused, grounded, private, until the day arrived. A late spring morning in Madrid. The sky was clear. The crowd stretched for miles. The royal monastery of San Lorenzo de El Escorial had never looked more radiant. Neither had Leonor. She wore a gown unlike anything the fashion world predicted. Spanish silk, hand-stitched lace, no diamonds, no tiara, only a single sapphire pendant, gifted by Queen Letizia. Christian wore his Danish naval uniform, modest, clean, and deliberate. The contrast between them, the softness of her gown, the strength of his uniform, told the story before a word was spoken. But what happened during the ceremony is what truly transformed the day. Instead of royal scripture, they read letters they had written to each other over the past 2 years. One by one, voice shaking, hands trembling, they spoke not as royals but as soulmates. Leonor said, "I was born into duty. But I found freedom in you." Christian replied, "You were not my crown. You were my compass." There was no applause, just silence, the kind that settles deep into the heart and stays there. And then, the kiss. It lasted only a few seconds. But in that time, centuries seemed to shift. When they stepped out onto the balcony, the roar from the streets of Madrid wasn't just loud, it was unified. Flags waved, strangers embraced, bells rang in churches from Granada to Bilbao. Across the world, monuments lit up in gold. The Eiffel Tower sparkled, the Empire State Building glowed. Even Denmark's Amalienborg Palace held a candlelit vigil for their own prince, now husband to a queen in waiting. But it wasn't the extravagance that made the moment magical. It was what came after. Instead of a lavish banquet, the newlyweds hosted a dinner for hospital workers, teachers, and volunteers from across Spain. Every table had someone who had never expected to dine at a royal wedding. Christian stood and gave a toast. "In marrying Leonor, I did not just gain a wife. I gained a people." That toast echoed far beyond the hall. And yet, with the fairy tale unfolding so perfectly, one question lingered: what comes next? Would Leonor step back from royal duties to focus on marriage? Would Christian move to Spain permanently? Would their union complicate Denmark's succession plans? The answers came quickly. Leonor returned to her training only 10 days after the wedding. In uniform, on base, focused, Christian began working quietly with Spanish youth programs, choosing community over ceremony. And Queen Letizia, she gave a rare, unscripted interview. When asked how she felt seeing her daughter marry so young, she smiled and said, "She's young, but she's ready, more than I ever was." It was a moment of generational reckoning. One queen raising the next, not in her image, but in her truth. And King Felipe, at the closing of his speech that evening, he said, "Spain did not lose a daughter today. It gained a future." And that's what this wedding was, not an ending. A beginning. A moment of royal magic, yes. But more importantly, a mirror. Reflecting who we are, what we value, and what love, even in the highest halls of power, still looks like when it's real. As the couple left for their brief honeymoon, no exotic island, just a small cottage in the Pyrenees, the world exhaled. Because for a brief, shining moment, love wasn't complicated. It wasn't political. It wasn't ceremonial. It was simple, powerful, and unforgettable. And as dawn broke over Madrid the next day, one thing was certain. This wasn't just a royal wedding. It was a turning point. A spark. A story the world will carry for generations. A royal magic that, just for a moment, made us all believe again.